Today, guys, we got something very special here on the channel. Not only is this the first Subaru Sambar dump we've had, it's also the highest mileage Subaru Sambar I've ever seen. Now, today we're gonna be doing an inspection front to back, seeing exactly what this little truck needs and how it's held up over the last 200,000 kilometers of heavy work and heavy use in Japan, and now heavy work here on a farm in the Carolinas. Now, before we get into it, it is a little bit dirty, but it is a workhorse. It is not a show car, so you'll have to forgive that. But they've also had a little bit of an issue with it, rough starting, stumbling, smoking, and we're gonna try to diagnose that along the way of our inspection, but I'm sure the two will go hand in hand with what's wrong with it and what it needs as far as maintenance schedule, getting it up to date. With that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So guys, as I mentioned, this is a KS4 Sambar dump edition with the hydraulic dump bed on it. Now, I don't recollect off the top of my head what model year it was, but I believe it is a mid to late 90s model. Like I said, this is worked on a chicken farm here in the Carolinas, so forgive the mess. It's not a show truck. It is a little workhorse. It does have factory air conditioning, which is pretty neat. It's pretty hard to find one with factory air, especially one with the dump bed on it. And the holy trifecta would be if it was supercharged. Now, one great thing so far about this hydraulic dump bed is the fact that you have a ton of accessibility to things like coolant lines, fuel lines, AC lines, etc., just by tilting the bed up. Now, there is a big plate here that protects the top of the engine and transmission. We'll be taking that off in a minute so we can get into inspecting, taking a look at the engine. This has a super large, super robust hydraulic cylinder. Probably more could be dumped out of this dump bed than a Sambar can safely keep in the bed. Payload for the bed on a normal Sambar is about 770 pounds, or like 500 kilometers, about 500 kilograms if I remember right, or maybe it's 350. I forget my conversion. I'll put it on the screen and fix my screw up. Anyway, I'm not sure if this is just from the weight of the dump bed conversion or the age of 200,000 kilometers, but those springs are mighty compressed, so you're adding quite a bit of weight onto the regular Sambar by adding the dump bed option. So again, judging by this hydraulic cylinder size, this thing can probably dump way more than it's safe to carry or put in the bed of it. It's also reinforced on the frame. If I recall correctly, the bed normally mounts directly to these risers. Now, they've got another little frame here that bolts around. They've got the hinges and a different bed that has these reinforcement bars to keep the bed floor from buckling. Also, the bed floor is solid and thicker steel than the traditional corrugated metal with the access cover here in the back. Now, the dump function is electric, so there is no PTO. There is no gear-driven hydraulic pump. It is an electric pump, self-contained basically, right here on the frame rail to the cylinder. And that's pretty much it. Now, there is a safety block back here to prevent it from falling on you if anything happens to hydraulic pressure in the cylinder, so the bed wouldn't crush you or injure you while you have this cover off working on the engine. So really quickly going to take this block out. We're going to run the bed up and run the bed down, and we'll lock it back in place, get the cover off, and take a look at our engine. Pretty neat, right? This plate is actually a lot thinner than I thought it was. And I don't think it's actually metal. I think it's some kind of plastic. So, now we can get on top of the engine pretty much as normal on any other Sambar model. And right away, this thing is super dusty and dirty around the intake. That is for sure. I'll bring the camera around here and we'll take a look and see what we can find. Let's pop open our air box first and get a quick look at the air filter. Hopefully the first thing they changed, but if not, we'll throw it in the service. And looks like it's a brand new filter in there. So we'll go ahead and close that right back up so we don't contaminate anything. Get any dirt in there in the air box. One thing I gotta mention is just, again, how accessible everything is, like the fuel pump and fuel filter here. Super easy to get at compared to on a traditional model. And everything looks pretty dry under here. Look at those axle seals, no leakage. Everything's dry on this side of the transmission. We'll go around to the other side and look at the engine a little more closely. Let's see what we got going on. So here at the back of the engine, you can really see what I was telling you about all the dirt and stuff caked up around the intake manifold. It's all over the distributor. And I assume a lot of our issue is ignition related. We need a tune-up. And judging from the smoke, we probably need valve stem seals. We're probably burning, consuming some oil, although it was kind of white rather than blue, so there might be some coolant getting in there. We might have a head gasket issue just based on the age, but that's just preliminary stuff without doing any kind of cylinder leakage test or compression test, etc. And looking from the timing belt cover, it's been a while since someone's been in here. So timing belt, water pump, all the normal stuff is on the list for this vehicle. And we'll dive into it more in a future video and really get into doing some of these services and repairs. Again, on this side, everything is very dry. I'm very impressed by the lack of leaks. I figured this little booger would be covered in fluids and leaking all over. Nothing really under the intake or carburetor I could see. The tail housing on the transmission there is dry. Our pinion seal on the front differential looks to be dry. Everything looks to be good. Even the oil pan, like I said, we'll get it up on jack stands here in a minute. Even the oil pan looks dry, which I've yet to see a Sambar stateside that didn't have either a rear main oil seal leak or an oil pan leak or both. So pretty impressive right there, especially as high of kilometers is on this truck. Perhaps it was owned by some kind of municipality or service company that kept on top of all repairs and maintenance and just kept it in tip-top shape. Now with the little dumpy's rear end in the air, as we can see by the cool graphics for Subaru dump, and the 350 kilogram rating is still there. We also have a little mini truck madness sticker from Japan. Awesome, very neat, very cool. Getting her up in the air, we see again everything is fairly dry. Not seeing axle seal leaks, not even really seeing a wet oil pan. Now it looks like it has seeped and dust and debris has collected on it, but there's no active wet spots or drips, so probably does need an oil pan reseal, might need a rear main seal, but at this point it's not exiting and dripping out. It's just a little bit on the damp side. Also, looking at suspension components and things of that nature, looks like our bushings are all pretty good. Again, those coil springs are collapsed. I would assume that's not normal, even for the dump bed with the extra weight. I assume that it needs coil springs just from repetitive overfilling, loading the suspension, and has just crushed those little coils, and they won't rebound. So coil springs or upgraded coil spring would be a recommendation for this little Sambar, but other than that, nothing is really jumping out on the backside or underneath here as really severe, needing attention, etc. Although over here we do have the normal separation of this mount. It is on the list for the replacement. Go ahead and put them a new one on there so it doesn't tear further and sag that engine down on the rear cross member. Now, after getting the inspection cover, the top timing belt cover off of here and shining my flashlight in there, it is a little bit grungy. It is a little built up in there. The belt is a little bit loose, and there is some debris on the tensioner. So I'm gonna go ahead and advise timing belt, water pump, all that good stuff replacement, because there is a sticker here, but it was not filled in, so we don't have the information of the last service. Now, I did just notice this. Obviously, oil is oil, 190,200 kilometers. So I'm assuming it's been changed since then, hopefully. And then ELM, I'm not sure about. Anyone that understands Japanese and would think of any acronym, I don't know if that would be timing belt or water pump or anything like that, but it says 193,200 kilometers. So very well they could have put a timing belt without components on it. Hard to say, at least for me as a non-native Japanese speaker. So onto the front end now. Everything looks really, really good under here. Again, considering the age, we've got torn boots on both front CV axles, but our tie rods, our ball joints, our control arm bushings all look to be in really good condition. And, you know, surprising, again, for the age and the kilometers on it. But again, pretty sure that someone took very good care of the maintenance on and upkeep on this little Sambar. So this is no beauty queen, as I said at the beginning of the video, so we're not going to go too crazy on cosmetics, but there is a cracked headlight housing, as you see here, and water in there, so that will cause issues, burn out headlight bulbs. It is tagged for highway usage. Also looks like this turn signal bulb is black, probably burn out as well. And this one is just yellowed, no cracking really. And this one, again, bulb's black, probably burnt out. So other than that, it's in really, really good shape. And again, as far as the issue with the idling, the rough idling, wanting to cut off, I'm thinking it's probably some ignition related, just looking at it. Probably needs a good ignition tune-up, plugs, wires, all that stuff. But we'll get into that in the next video when we start repairing this little truck. So guys, there you have it. A quick overview and inspection of this super high kilometer Subaru Dump Bed Edition. Again, this is a testament to Subaru workhorses, these little K trucks, and how they are capable of tons of mileage, tons of kilometers, as long as they're cared for and properly maintained, like most Subarus. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for future Subaru and tool content and the repairs on this Sambar. I'll see you guys in the next one.